This episode is sponsored by Synchrony CareCredit.
Just having that ready to come out of my wallet or putting it on a credit card wasn't, or having it didn't have that money in the bank. So this was able to give me the time to pay it over time or move things around and be able to satisfy it through different, sources of funds that I had. So I used that card multiple times that year because it's not just a one and done. It's a revolving credit card. So in many cases, this time at that time, I probably had 4 or 5 visits where I had different bills. It wasn't one $8,000 bill. It's like a $1,200 bill here, like a $2,000 bill here, a $500 bill, because you keep going back, and all those promotions are running concurrent.
Welcome, everybody, back to another exciting show of the About That Water podcast, where we help the sandwich generation build strong financial habits so that they can spend money, talk about money, and enjoy their money with confidence. And today I want to talk about really just enjoying a pet, because some of you are actually pet owners and some of you might not be. But come across a recent article that said, a recent nationwide study by PetHealthEquity.org found that 28% of households with pets experience barriers to veterinary care, with finances being the most common reason. In low-income households, and researchers found financial and housing equity can increase the risk of animals that will not receive care that they need. Sociologist Arnold Arluke, author of Underdogs, Pets, People, and Poverty, estimates that 66% of the pets in poverty have never seen a vet at all. So I'm bringing on a specialist. His name is Jonathan Wainberg, who brings nearly 20 years of financial services expertise and leaderships to the role of the Senior Vice President and General Manager of the Pet & Co. brand business at Synchrony, one of the nation's premier customer financial services companies. Jonathan is responsible for business development, commercial ingenuity, market expansion, and revenue growth as part of the health and wellness platform comprised of more than 260,000 health providers nationwide. He oversees the health and wellness co-brand portfolio, including Walgreens. How are you doing today, Jonathan?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on, Anthony.
Thanks for being patient with me with your intro, because you did so many great things, and this is amazing.
And listen, I didn't realize I did half of those, so I'm glad it's written there. So thank you.
You're welcome. Now, one of the top questions that I have right now is that I've seen this going around online, and they say, like, if you can't afford your vet bills, should you even have a pet?
Yeah, listen, that's a very tough question, right? I'm not one to dictate to someone how they spend their money, so it's a very personal decision. What I can say is you should, you're bringing a living being into your household, right? And that you're going to be caring for. So it's best to understand some of the commitments that come with that, and whether you can afford them now, or if you can, work with family members or build a savings account for that. I think you're going to be better off, because a lot of the research shows that financial strains are in the vet industry or for pet parents is real, right? And you might be better off not having that pet if you think about all the other expenses you have. With that said, it's a personal decision. There's different levels of care that you can give to certain animals, and each breed has a different kind of lifestyle and cost to it. So I would say, for me personally, I would not feel comfortable having a living being and not being able to provide and care for it. But I think there are ways to think about it and budget for it so that pet ownership is not beyond the reach of a lot of people.
Yeah, that is tough because I see people who have pets and they just, to me, I'm always seeing a dollar behind it. Like, okay, you want to get them a collar, you want to brush their
Yeah.
teeth, you got to make sure you get to the vet. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so many different things. Like, are there any like common financial pitfalls that pet parents encounter when trying to plan for that pet care?
Well, yeah, and before I kind of answer that, I think the other element to it is that there's incredible human benefits, right, for having a pet in your life, and it's not like you said, you see the dollars behind it. That's a very important thing we got to talk about. But there's an incredible amount of studies that show you have better health outcomes, reduced depression by having a pet. People are more mobile if they're walking their, dogs, and it helps, with loneliness and a bunch of other stuff. So it's not just the dollar part of it. There's a lot of human benefits, which could then, improve other outcomes that people are going through. To answer your direct question on, are there certain pitfalls that pet parents fall into? I think that the major one is not being prepared. Right. I think it's hard. You can plan as much as you can, right, for eventualities, and I think pet parents are decent at that. Where they kind of fall behind is expecting the unexpected, and you're talking about a pet here, right? And so we know that in a pet's lifetime, right? We know that 4 to 5 pets are going to will experience a pet emergency, right? So, and it's hard to say you got to expect the unexpected, but that's the truth. So one of the things that people should always be prepared for is something in case, and because again, it becomes an incredibly stressful time, and you're trying to think about the care of your pet in the life and death, perhaps in some cases, and then the stress of how are you going to afford this, and you want to be able to think clearly as you go through those decisions.
Yeah, and I think most of the pet deaths happen because people can't afford their insurance just to kind of get them taken care of. Because I mean, I know when I was growing up, we had a dog, and it was like, well, as we were moving around, it's just kind of like the dog was just too big for the place. And so we had to, quote unquote, put him down or just give him to the vet and just be like, hey, we don't want him anymore. Or just because it couldn't fit that household. And it's emotional strain, just not on the parents, but also the kids. And because you're talking about more than just the finances, it's about the care and feed of it. So,
no, absolutely. I think, listen, there's a lot of shelters that will take back, pets, and we like to partner with, no kill shelters. So ones that, work to find, that pet, if it has to be surrendered, a household that will care for it and won't put them down. But it is the largest factor of when people are unable to keep their pet in their family is financial, where they have to give it to a shelter, right? There's other reasons also. There's behavioral reasons with the pet. There's, like you said, even living conditions. You move from, a house to an apartment, and maybe the apartment doesn't allow pets, right? Or you going into a different geography, and, things just don't work. You switch jobs, you can't take them for walks and stuff like that. But the number one, reason for surrendering of pets is unfortunately financial.
Mm. And you're a pet owner yourself, right?
I am indeed. May I introduce you?
Yeah.
Get over here. There she is. Here's the beautiful Maddie. She is. Oh, look at her. She is she's hopefully going to be turning 15. Nice. In human years, in June. So she's a miniature poodle. I'm gonna put her back down. She's feeding me all the info to answer these questions, just so you know. And she's been with us. She's lived all over the world with us, actually, and she's been a great part of our family. And we're blessed to have her. But she, especially as pets get older, she has more health issues, right? And 15-year-old is a senior pet, and she has a couple of chronic conditions. One of them is called Cushing's disease, which is common in poodles, and it's an adrenal gland issue that she has problem with cortisol levels, and so she's on medication for that, and she has to get her levels tested 2 to 3 times a year. She has a heart condition, a mitral valve deficiency, so the blood that goes into one of her chambers in the heart has like a murmur, like it goes back, it doesn't close. So she's on heart medicine, and she has to get a doggy EKG about twice a year to make sure that that is being kind of maintained properly, right? And not deteriorating. With that comes an expense. I'm fortunate that I have the means and the tools to pay for it. One of them is the business that I work for, CareCredit, where I'm able to put my bills, pay my bill with my CareCredit card, and get a deferred promotional finance product that allows me to defer interest for from 6 months to 18 months, depending on the size of the bill.
Yeah. So one of the things is understanding is when you have the pet, but as the pet ages, going back to being able to afford that care, which goes back to, if you can't afford the bills, should you even have a pet? Because I could see, like, yes, and then it's like, all right, well, it's a part of the family now. It's more than the finances. Let's do whatever we need to do to make sure that we take care of this pet, this our family member, and really make sure that they're taken care of. But for some people who feel like they are struggling right now to whether or not, hey, do we pay this vet bill, or do we take care of the food on the table for the rest of the family? And you mentioned credit care. How can credit care kind of help out with that process?
Okay, CareCredit. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
So no problem. So CareCredit is it's a part of Synchrony, and I'm responsible for a pet business, and it's basically the largest elective healthcare credit card in the United States, and it is it's accepted at around 280,000 healthcare providers in the United States, including about 28,000 of them veterinarians. So we have about 85% of veterinarians in the U.S. accept CareCredit, and it's also accepted in the dental space and the vision and the cosmetic space, audiology, etc. But in the vet space, what it can do for you is if you apply and you get approved for that CareCredit card, and you get a bill for, let's just make it easy math, $1,200 bill, right? Which is a large bill. You can then use that credit card, the CareCredit card at the vet, and depending on which promotions that vet offers. But I would think they would put you on a 12-month promotion, where as long as you can pay $100 a month for 12 months to pay off your bill and not accrue interest, so long as you're making those payments. And that gives the pet parents the ability to pay that over time without having to hopefully borrow money, without hopefully having to accrue interest. And because we know people don't have $1,200 just lying around, or too many people don't have that. And so this is a product that helps manage that and put it into let's call it bite-sized pieces, if you will, in that bill.
Now, how does one go about even applying for the CareCredit?
Yeah, you can go to carecredit.com and apply right there. So www.carecredit.com, and you'll see there might be a drop-down box for which industry you want. But the truth is once you have the card, it can be used across the network. So if you have some dental work that you need done, or if you need to get a hearing aid or stuff like that, or you need something for your pet, it could be used across that network. You can also get it at the veterinarian, right? And so if you're there and you get a bill that you're a little bit taken aback at the cost because you weren't prepared for that, it's very easy to apply in the veterinarian's practice as well. It's obviously some better to get it before in case. That's what we recommend, right? It's good to have something just in case, and if you have a pet the odds are you're going to have an unexpected expense. So you may as well be prepared. But we're there at the point of care as well.
Do you need to have good credit for it?
You need to have some level of credit history. It's, good credit is not something for me. I don't have a grading on what's good and what's bad, because we underwrite at Synchrony, very deliberately with a lot of different data sources. So I can't pinpoint, hey, if your FICO score is this, you're going to get it or not, because we built in so many different factors into our approval underwriting mechanism. So what I can say is that because this is a network card and it is used just within this space and for certain procedures and with certain providers, we are able to underwrite deeper than you would for a general purpose credit card. So I think you have a better chance of getting approved for us because of some of those behaviors that we see, and we try to approve as many people as possible, in particular in this space.
Yeah, because just thinking about the disparities of even access to credit in certain areas, and it's really good that the underwriting is there to help out even the people in the tightest of budgets, shall I say. And so going through that process, understanding like, okay, now that we got this card, we have all the things. Can you just do like a quick, I know you just did one for us, like you got a bill at $1,200 and it goes through that way. Now, is there anything like an annual fee that's going on along with this process, or is it just only as you use it?
Yeah, there's no annual fee. So, and it's free to apply as well. Also, I would add that our application process is you can get pre-qualified. So if for some reason you're not going to get approved, it's not going to hit your credit bureau. So that won't hurt your, you won't look like someone's requesting it. So that's good. So we try to, protect the consumer that way. And then you'll get through the pre-qualification stage. It'll say, okay, yes, you pre-qualified, finish the application. So we're able to help the consumer out that way. But other than that, there's no annual fee. The way that it works is, we're able to give interest-free promotions out, or deferred interest promotions, I should say, so long as you're making those payments, right? So give that example, if you have that $1,200 bill and you got a 12-month promotion, so long as you make that payment every month of $100, you will not accrue interest or any fees. You can also catch up, right? So if you miss a month or two, and as long as you pay the full $1,200 before the end, you also will not have any fees or accrue any interest in that as well. So as long as you pay it off within that promotional period. Each vet, depending on the size of the procedure and based on talking to the pet parent or the pet owner, will determine the length of that promotion. Everyone offers a 6-month. Some people offer the 12-month also. Quite a few offer the 12-month. Some offer an 18-month. There's a 24-month. It really varies, depends on the size of the ticket and what's manageable for the counterparties in the transaction.
Now, for your pet, what was like the biggest expense that you had to deal with in CareCredit? Really, just kind of like, I'm so glad that I got this.
Yeah, I think it was a few years ago when we kind of discovered that she had this this Cushing's thing, right? There was a lot of different blood works we had to get done. She's quite small, and so we had to calibrate the right dosage, right? And we kept having to go back, a month here, a month there, a month there. I think in that year, between that and the heart condition, which both happened in the same year, I think her out-of-pocket costs at the veterinarian that year was over $8,000, and that's significant. And just having that ready to come out of my wallet or putting on a credit card wasn't, or having it didn't have that money in the bank. So this was able to give me the time to pay it over time or move things around and be able to satisfy it through different sources of funds that I had. So I used that card multiple times that year, because you don't only, it's not just a one and done. It's a revolving credit card. So in many cases, this time at that time I probably had 4 or 5 visits where I had different bills. It wasn't one $8,000 bill. It was like a $1,200 bill here, like a $2,000 bill here, a $500 bill, because you keep going back, and all those promotions are running concurrently, and I set it up for auto pay, right? So we have that feature so that people hopefully it reminds them to pay it, and so that they don't accrue the interest. So you have that feature also where it pays it every month as well.
Okay, it's starting to sound like that I should get a like a life insurance policy out for the pet, just in case, well, when the pet dies, it's like, all right, let's go down to pay your bills right quick.
Well, listen, there is, pet insurance is another tool to help manage the costs and the unexpected costs of pet ownership, not on the life insurance side, but on the pet health insurance side, right? And we're, I'm involved in that as well. Synchrony, I used to own Pets Best. We had bought it and grew it and recently sold it, but that was the third largest pet insurer in North America, I believe, when we sold it. And but we're still invested in it and a parent company which owns a lot of other insurance brands. And so insurance is a good way also to help budget and manage expenses. It's not for everyone. It's but it is a valuable tool together with CareCredit to be able to manage those unexpected expenses, and also make sure that you got a little bit of compliance to some of the medical care that you want with some of the wellness plans that come along with that. And there's different types of insurance that you could toggle and build a plan that makes sense for you. So it's quite adjustable to the individual's needs.
Yeah. And to remind people that this is just for educational purposes only. So make sure you select what is best for you and your family, and including your pet into that family arena. So just want to throw that out there. So we're going to go into the future. This is the growth side of it. And I want to get your thoughts, because you've been in this industry for a long time. And what are your thoughts on the future of just pet healthcare?
Well, we've seen the cost of care rise, not insignificantly over the last several years. Certainly since COVID, and with some of the inflation in the market, and inflation in the veterinary space and the pet space has outpaced that of the general market. So it's rising faster. There's several reasons for that, but one of the reasons, which I think unfortunately doesn't get as much news, is that outcomes are better, right? People, the veterinarians are better than they have been in the past. The information that they get, the testing of that stuff, the drugs, the specialties, we're seeing so much better outcomes. And with that, you're seeing some rising of price, because there's a lot of specialized medicines that haven't been able to be done before, surgeries which hadn't been able to be done before, right? And so I think you're going to see, just like in human healthcare, really a lot of advancements, which is exciting. Right now, some of them are going to come at a very high and specialized price, and some people are going to be able to afford that, and some people aren't. And I think that's just the way life is, sometimes. But I think what you're seeing, certainly, in a large proportion of the population, is people are willing to spend more on their pets than they ever were in the past also, right? I think you look at pet ownership, and it's on the rise, but it's not just on the rise. It's also the place that the pet has in the family, right? And so people are either getting married later, having kids later, not having kids at all, right? And so, and more people have grown up with pets than they did in the past, right? And so they're they're, you want to call it the humanization of pets or what have you, but people are certainly spending more and are happy to, kind of put them at the center of the household. And with that, I think you're seeing people wanting to spend more on their pets, whether it be on some more high-end treats, maybe some nice, Halloween costumes also, or things like that, but also on and the care that they get, right? You're seeing a lot of specialized foods for specialized diets happening, and great advances there, and you're seeing hopefully a better compliance of care for those family members that we bring in.
Yeah, one of my clients was just talking about they have a birthday for their dog coming up, and it was like, hey, I got to make sure I get them ice cream, and I got to make sure that they don't have this particular peanut butter with all this extra stuff in it. I was like, well, why don't you just use natural peanut butter where it's just roasted peanuts and salt? And it was like, well, I need to make sure I get it from this particular place. I don't want to try anything else. And I was like, but it's just peanuts. Okay.
Well, I am. What I am not is a vet diet specialist. That I can tell you. We try to adhere to her recommendations from the vet, but I'd be disingenuous of me to say that a piece of chicken hasn't fallen off the table from time to time, or some steak when she's looking at me like that. Why does your food smell better than mine? So I don't think I'd be useful in that discussion.
No, it's fair because it goes back to, how do we make sure that these pets are getting the same care and love that we want to have for ourselves as humans? And, granted, their stomachs are different. Their eating habits are definitely going to be different. But also because this is Small Business Month, it kind of behooves me not to talk about how could CareCredit really benefit the small business or even the veterinarian practices out there. So how could actually CareCredit help them?
Well, let me start off by saying that about 60% of the vets that CareCredit is accepted in are independent, and independent vets or small business vets, not the large chains. We also are accepted in both, but we're more are there's more independents and small business ones that we partner with, and we think independent vet ownership is very important, and small business, especially in America, is an engine which is so important for the economy. So we talked about how CareCredit can help the pet parent or the pet owner, right, by giving them the time to pay and the flexibility and having that peace of mind, knowing that you have that card in case something happens. Well, how it works for the veterinarian is we enable them to get paid, the small business owner, in a timely manner, right? And so if not for something like CareCredit, they would have to, put it on their own account, right? And have to chase after, clients, which is not, something that's good. So we're able to send them the money for the treatment if it's used on the CareCredit card within 2 days. There's very, very limited recourse to them, so they don't have to chase after the client and remove that. It helps them with accounting. It helps them with cash flow, right? So I think that's part of it. I think also as a company, Synchrony is very much invested in small and medium business community, and so we do educational. We just in CareCredit, we train our partners in that space on how to use credit when it makes sense, how to make it easier for your practice to run more efficiently with it, and all the tools. There's also an incredible amount of data, through our dashboards that we share on how to maximize revenue through using credit as well, and sharing of the best practices. So those are some of the things we do. We help them with some of the marketing campaigns that they can do, and how best display and best practice sharing. So I think those are the things that we do. And Synchrony as a company, is a larger bank, does that across the board, not just in the health and wellness space, but in the home and auto space and some of the diversified portfolios, whether they be in jewelry or sewing or travel and other stuff that we participate in.
It sounds like a whole nother episode because I would like to dive more into that piece of it.
Sure.
It's like from the business perspective of, how to maximize the use of incorporating such a big bank into your everyday practice. And with that, just thinking about the futures one more time with the veterinarian. So say if I'm going to a veterinarian and I realize that they don't have CareCredit, what can I do to kind of pitch them as a user? Be like, hey, I noticed you guys don't offer this. Here's a number or here's a website to kind of check them out so we can offer it here at this particular vet as well.
I'm happy to say that CareCredit is quite widely accepted, right? So we're accepted in 85% of vets in the U.S., right? And if you factor in a lot of, we offer promotional financing starting at $200. There's a lot of vets that typically, if it's just a vaccine or a quicker clinic that you only need $100, they don't accept. So I like to think we're not everywhere. We love to be accepted in every one. And we're working on that so that you could tell them, if someone went and didn't have it, you should really accept CareCredit. Have a CareCredit card. It's a great product to help us as pet parents or pet owners manage that expense. The other thing you could do, if you go to carecredit.com, we have a partner locator, a provider locator. So before going to a vet or choosing a vet, you can see who actually accepts CareCredit already, and so that you're going into someone that has that service provide, which we believe, and certainly I, in my, not just in my professional role, but in my personal experience, is something that is fundamental to helping pet parents, manage the cost of care for that family member.
Man, that's awesome. And thank you for making it so easy to kind of enroll to make that happen.
Thank you so much.
So I have one last question before we get to the final 4 questions, which is if you could share one message with pet parents who are feeling overwhelmed by veterinarian costs, what would it be?
Well, first of all, I'd say you're not alone, right? I think we've seen a large rise in costs. We've talked about why some of it has happened. Some of it also was that veterinarians had to make a living wage also, and a lot of the people in their practices, labor costs had gone up, and that doesn't mean it was wrong. I don't think they're raising price for the sake of raising price. You're seeing some of the supplies and inputs going up. So I would say, don't take it out on the veterinarian. It's just something that is going through the system and working its way through the economy. I'd say you should talk to your veterinarian and kind of come together with a plan. Also, they're the experts. They're going to know what this pet could cost over the lifetime and how you should budget for it. And then there's something called the spectrum of care, right? And what might be right for me as a pet parent might not be right for someone else, right? And so kind of talk to them and think about, okay, what kind of level of care makes sense and works with your budget and your financial situation. And I think that's a very useful conversation to have when you're starting off in that relationship with that veterinarian, right? People tend to be quite loyal to their veterinarian, right? Which makes sense, and they're the experts in that field. So that's one thing I would say. Start off, have a conversation. Say, hey, how often is this? Do you think I'm going to have to bring in? Let's say when Maddie was a puppy, this miniature poodle. How often do you think she's going to need to come in? Once a year, twice a year? What else do you recommend? How much is that going to be costing? This much over this, and together work with them on a plan. And I think information is power. Right, and knowing all that stuff up front is going to make you less stressed about it. There's always going to be some sort of financial stress at some point, no matter what, because like we said, we tend to also sometimes bring your pet sometimes unnecessarily to the vet because they don't speak, right? And so they're your little protected child. You're like, oh, this person, it is an acne, and it could just could just not be feeling well, but doesn't need to go to the vet, right? And so there's going to be times where you're going to be emotional about it, and so being prepared and talking with the vet through all that stuff is great. There's some there's incredible amount of information online also, and just different networks and different community groups for those pets, and even those pets in these in certain geographies that you can get a lot of information from as well.
I like that. And thank you for bringing that up, as far as, because we both not pet experts, because each species has its own thing. Like you mentioned that early on, and they have their own care and feed. So we got to be there.
Absolutely. Right. There's certain things which, and there's certain breeds which, are going to have respiratory issues. There's certain breeds that you could be getting based on your, number one, your lifestyle, the amount of time you're going to be able to walk it. And so if you're not going to be able to take that dog on, get that dog that amount of exercise, it might not fit in the lifestyle that you need, which could result in adverse health kind of situations, right? If it's not getting the right amount of exercise, or if it isn't, it might behave, it may have behavioral issues because of that. So really study up before you get your pet on what the right match is for what you're trying to get out of that relationship and what you can provide it.
Awesome. All right, ready for the final four question, Jonathan?
Oh, okay. I'm ready. I don't, you'll tell me if I did well after this.
You got it. All right. Question 1. What does wealth mean to you?
Ooh. Health. Yeah, I think your health is your wealth, right? I think you can have as much money as you want, but if you're not able to enjoy it, if you're not able to enjoy life, spend time with your family, your loved ones, then it does no good. So really having in health is around the center of that. So your health is your wealth is an expression which I'm sure you've heard before, but it's certainly something that is very true.
Yes, sir. Number 2, what was your worst mistake as a pet owner?
Ooh, that is a good one. I would say my worst mistake as a pet owner that's a tough one. That's a good question. I wasn't ready for that one. My worst mistake as a pet owner. Well, I think we had a little bit of a hard time when I have a 7-year-old son. Maddie is going to be 15. She was about 7 when we had him. And so I think I could have done a better job of getting her prepared for bringing another living being in the family. So he had his fingers got nipped a little bit, and we could have probably had a smoother transition planned for the two of them. We tried our best, but still there were some incidents. So getting her a little bit maybe more socialized. She's not a dog that bites, but children go and they pull and they do stuff, and so just making sure that we were ready for the human coming into the house.
Those darn kids, right? Number 3. Is there a book that inspired your journey or changed your perspective?
On pet parenting or just in life? I
usually go with life, but you can go with that.
Yeah. No, I don't. That makes it easier for me. Is that? I think the book that I would say really influenced me, and it was a book I read when I was young, but it was just it just taught me a lot about how the world works and people, and it actually has an affiliation to pet to some degree. Is Animal Farm by George Orwell. Yeah, it starts off. You see how people and power can change things, and how people are treated differently, and how corruption works, and just really it sticks to me to this day. Even though I probably read it in the 8th grade or something like that, and I try to reread it once in a while. It just kind of freshens things up.
Yeah,
Not an exciting one like The Art of War. I'm not that, or Machiavelli. The Prince. I'm not that calculated.
This Animal Farm was a great book, great storytelling, and using personification in animals. It was a perfect book, I think.
Yeah, that's a good match, right? Yeah.
Number 4. What is your favorite dish to make?
Ooh. Well, anything that's not going to kill my family, because I am not a good cook. So yeah, that's a good. I am not great at cooking. My son says I make the best macaroni and cheese, but I'll concede it comes out of a box. I think he just is being nice. They have this good brand now. I think it's called Goodles. It's like a healthier boxed mac and cheese. I think you know what? Okay, here's what I got something for you.
Okay.
I learned how to make pizza during COVID, and so during COVID, I'd get the dough and started making pizza. So for even since then, I think I made it a few weeks ago, and my son likes to do it with me, and we make kind of these 2 little personal pizzas and dress them up, and it's a good way to spend time with them. Also, it's always fun throwing dough, hopefully catching it, and he really enjoys that. So I'd say pizza.
That is awesome, man. Look, you might have to do a video one day and kind of share that off.
Oh boy, yeah. I don't know. I may not pass the food inspection, but we'll try.
Awesome. Well, Jonathan, it's been a pleasure having you on the show and really getting to learn a lot more about you, who you are, from the various interviews that you've done before, and also learning a lot more about CareCredit and how that actually can help out the pet parents in doing such great things. And I just want to commend you for doing a great work, really spreading the word out there and making it nice and easy for people to, take care of their family. Not just financially, but also emotionally, because this is an emotional strain when things happen. We always want to have everybody in a good light. And to have this happen, this is a great way to kind of help people just continue on to live their lives that they want to. But this is the last question of the show, which is where can people just kind of find out a little bit more about your services, or even just get in touch with you and your team?
Yeah, I would say to go to carecredit.com, and you'll see all the different specialties we're in. And if you hit the veterinary drop down, there's a lot of great information there as well that we provide to prospective pet owners, and budgeting tips and all the other things we have. There's a lot of good knowledge out there. So I'd recommend going to carecredit.com and using that as a starting point. And I would say I want to thank you for having me on and letting me talk about this and get the word out. It's important, but I want to thank you as well for what you're doing and trying to help your listeners and your community get more education about finance and getting more perspectives, and serving, doing that as a great public service is important. So thank you so much for your work.
Oh, man, thank you so much. All right, so for those of you who are listening, please make sure y'all do the thing, subscribe, follow, and share this episode with another pet parent. And even if you're not a pet parent and you think of somebody who's planning to be a pet parent, this is the episode that you really want to share with them. So thank you all again. Y'all be safe. We out. Peace.
Peace.